headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, Mike. It's good to be back on the home of common sense again, and it's great to the fact that your listeners and viewers can understand my accent as well. It's always an advantage, you know what I'm saying?
Well, we thought we'd better get you into the studio first to get a good look at you and catch the cut of your jib and all that sort of thing. You passed the test with flying colours, I'm pleased to say.
That's due to the makeup girls, that is. It nothing to do with me.
Absolutely right.
They make you look good every single week as well.
They absolutely do, and let's just congratulate ourselves one more time for all the great figures that we've just seen. Record figures. I was going to
say, outstanding. Facebook is losing its users, and Talk Radio is increasing its viewership and listenership.
Could these two things be connected?
To everybody watching, keep sharing it, because it's important, because this is the home of common sense.
It really is, absolutely right. Now, this has come as a bit of a bolt from the blue, hasn't it? Rishi Sunak getting up this morning, talking to us about how he's going to give us some money back off our council tax. That's something like 12 quid a month, it would seem to me, which is hardly going to help anyone. Meanwhile, the cap on energy costs is going to go up again in April by 54% to nearly £2,000 a year. Ordinary family households are facing bills of something like £3,000 more than they were last year. And we can't go on like this, can we?
No, it's just crumbs off the elite's table, isn't it, really? Let's be honest, because they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's our money in the first place, and he's just giving us a hand. And as you pointed out already, Mike, this is not going to help families across the country. Millions of people are going to be pushed into poverty as a result of this government's taxing policy. Let's just tax, legislate, and it doesn't seem to have a plan, a way out from it. And yet, we're looking at a Conservative government that is more like Labour every single day. They've gone from dark blue, pale blue, to almost red.
Yes.
I mean, what has happened to this government?
Well, they used to call the Tony Blair operation Blue Labour. I wonder whether we should start calling Boris Johnson's government Blue Labour, because it really is extraordinary how much money they're allowing the energy companies to make. I mean, I was just saying to our previous guest, Shell just profits by 12 billion quid. Now, you can't tell me that that's got nothing to do with the rising price of energy, so they're not suffering. Their directors are going to take home their six-figure salaries. Their shareholders are going to get the dividends that they got last year. So, who are the mugs here? It's obviously us, isn't it?
It is. And it's the big fat companies that are making it the most, aren't they? You look at these companies like Shell and the big corporations, they've been increasing the prices of fuel at the pumps for the last 20 months during the pandemic, and it's crept up, and nobody really was reporting on it. I know you've talked about it on this show, Mike, because it's the home of common sense, and lots of people have been affected by that, not being able to use as much fuel to travel to work, and they're pushed on the public transport, and certainly here in Wales, public transport is a complete joke. You can't get anywhere, because it's such a rural place, but certainly that's what's happening, and it is the big companies that are making all the money off the backs of the little people once again. And Rishi Sunak's announcement today does no favours for middle earners, for low-paid families, for people on benefits. They're going to be pushed into huge poverty. We're going to see more people at food banks, more people in debt because they're trying to borrow against what they already owe, and the crisis is going to get worse. We're heading for a financial crash, it seems like, under this government, which I never thought I would say under a Conservative-led government.
And do you know what's interesting is Peter Hitchens, a man who I started off disagreeing with, but who I now almost agree with on absolutely everything. He predicted this. He alone predicted this right at the start of the pandemic, right at the start of the first lockdown. He said there's going to be a terrible price to pay for all of this. And look what's going on. He's absolutely right.
Well, he is, because you look at our national borrowing and our debt, that's gone up massively. And some of that is a direct result of the lockdowns that the government imposed as well. Pay and furlough. Now, if we didn't have those lockdowns and restrictions as much as we did, for example, in places like Sweden and other places, then the debt and the borrowing wouldn't have been so high. So the government are culpable for this. They're responsible for the debt. They're responsible for the borrowing. And they'll say to the public, well, we supported you, through the pandemic. And I completely disagree with it. As we've said before, Mike, when I was with you earlier this week, there needs to be a public inquiry into how the governments have handled the pandemic and the impact now it's having, because now people are paying for the government's decisions back 20 months ago.
And for them to say, we have to help to rebuild the economy. Well, hang on a minute. It was you that wrecked the economy, not us. I mean, we didn't do anything to wreck the economy. It was your fault that the economy was wrecked. It was your fault that you gave away billions of pounds to people who didn't know what they were doing, giving billions of pounds to companies that didn't exist, which are now writing off as some kind of, unreachable fraud. It's unbelievable what's going on.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be a way out of it. There's no alternative. I've not got a credible plan from the opposition, from Labour either.
No.
They always come up with, well, we've got a plan. Well, what is your plan? It's on the back of a fag packet. Yeah. I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard anything that's credible. I can accept the fact that the government got a huge challenge on their hands. I get that. And I'm no economist, and I don't know how the economy works inside and out, but I get the basics of how things work. Income, expenditure. That's all you need to know, and what you got left at the end of the month for most families. And most families are not looking at the economical kind of impacts globally or internationally. They're looking at, I get my wages, the end of the month, I pay all my bills, and I'm skint. I got nothing left.
Right. And that is the case for more and more people in this country. And guess what? The government's idea to help them out with that is to put the national insurance contribution up by 1.25% coming in April. They're going to put the electricity and gas prices up in April. I mean, people are going to be absolutely destitute. I got this from Benedict, right? He says, I live in my grandparents' house. They're both in care. I'm self-employed and I'm already feeling the pinch. I can't afford to move out. The house I currently live in is Band E, so I'm screwed. Absolutely unbelievable. And here's one from Steve, who says, my energy is with Scottish Power, which promises me 100% renewable electricity. So why am I paying so much more for the high gas prices? I think someone is trying to pull a fast one. Either my power isn't renewable or they are pocketing the difference. Well, that's the other racket, isn't it? I've been calling for ages and some MPs have backed me. Robert Halfon is one of them. Get rid of this 20% green subsidy. Who the hell needs that? Who's getting it? All these companies are getting it. They're getting my money to run a company so they can charge me even more money for my electricity and my gas. It's a madness.
Yeah, it is madness, and we've talked this before, Mike, this big green agenda, this net zero kind of thing, and it goes back to the whole idea of what it's going to cost people.
I mean, you should rename,
it's going to cost us.
You should rename net zero, because that's what we're all going to end up with. Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely zero. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly
net
what's
zero. We haven't got any money.
Well, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I was going to put a windmill out in my back garden, but there's not enough wind to be able to power it.
Well, so get Drakeford round. We'll blow it round.
Well, he's got money to splash about, Mike. And let's be honest, you've seen this recent one with TikTok where he spent £237,000, and the Freedom of Information Act that was released earlier this week. And he spent £237,000 on TikTok ads of him dancing with teenagers. Now, if you've seen him dancing, the guy's rubbish. He can't dance as it is, so I don't even know why he's doing it.
Why is he paying TikTok, by the way? Everybody else just puts things on TikTok without paying for it.
You may be interested to know this, Mike. He's got links with China because in 2016, a delegation from Wuhan, yes, believe it or not, Wuhan, came to Swansea and bought land in Swansea at the waterfront there to the handsome sum of £300 million.
Wow.
As an investment. Now, of course, many of you viewers and listeners don't know this, but it's fact-checked. It's all out there. They can find it themselves. So they've got close links to China. They've done lots of deals with them in the past. It's no surprise that he's using TikTok, and not just with these dances, to promote get the jab and wear a mask and all that. A band called Goldie Looking Chain, famous here in Wales, in Newport. Yeah, well, they were paid the handsome sum of £37,000. They were given about £7,000. PR companies got the rest. And a week later, they had to cancel their gig because they all caught COVID.
You couldn't make this stuff up.
I got to laugh. I got to laugh. But at least, think it's the irony. It's the irony.
It is. Well, of course, the peak award for COVID madness goes to Nicola Sturgeon this week, though, for the SNP, cutting the bottom off the doors in all the schools because they think that will help them with the spread of COVID.
I'm no carpenter, right? But I can do a cheaper job for her. I got some tools in the garage here. I can go there. I can do it for less than £300,000. I mean, this is taxpayers' money. We're talking about it, Mike, but you know the reality. This is hard-earned taxpayers' money for ridiculous ideas that devolved governments think is a good idea. £300,000 on shortening doors to stop the spread of COVID. The woman has gone absolutely mental. She's not right in the head. Now, that's my opinion. I know it might not be yours. It is my opinion.
Listen, you can say that on the Independent Republic of Mike Graham.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
I mean, I'm sorry. Let's see. If she wants to take you to court to prove that she's absolutely fine, what are you going to say to her? Why don't you just take the doors off? Why do you have to take them off? Because here's what they're going to do, right? They're going to take they're going to take the doors off. They're going to cut them down, and they're going to put them back on. What's the bet? Because I can give you some history on this from when they started the Scottish Parliament. It was going to be something like 400,000 quid to build it, right? It ended up being something like 40 million quid because that was the overspend. One of the things they did wrong was when they built it with all these really weird shaped windows, they ordered all the windows in the wrong size. So when they all arrived, none of them fit. So they had to send them all back and get some new windows. So double the price for the windows. So probably what will happen is they'll sew off the wrong half of the door and put it back on, and it will be the wrong way round or something. They'll have to chuck them all away. Isn't
it mad? These are people who are in charge. These are people who are governing us. I mean, and it's just ridiculous. No, you're in Wales as well. Our airport, Cardiff Airport, is famously owned by the Welsh government. And year on year, in the last financial report, we got pre-tax losses of almost £24 million. So they can't run an airport. They're running ads on TikTok. They're spending money on silly bands trying to promote the jab. And literally, you're thinking to yourself, we got huge levels of poverty. where our education standards are some of the lowest in the whole United Kingdom. We've got a housing crisis in Wales, and he's on TikTok spending 200 grand. He's wasting 24 million in an airport they can't even run, and it makes you realise, what is he doing? This is why I refer to him as the Emperor down at Cardiff Bay, because he doesn't seem to be accountable for the wastage. And then I mentioned to you the Health Minister, Yvonne Gethin, who was promoted to Economy Minister after screwing up the National Health Service. You can't write it, Mike.
You really couldn't. How about this from Angela? She says, this Chancellor has made the price hike worse. He's probably made just about every energy user extremely cross and depressed. Then he boasts what a good job he's done. Priceless. He sure is. Well, this is the thing. I mean, you know, the idea that you're going to be better off because if you happen to live in a band A, B, C or D, I don't know what band you live in, but there's I'm hearing that it's commuter belt sort of houses that are in those types of bands. People who are in bigger houses, certainly in the southeast, are not going to be anywhere near this rebate from the council tax. And also, it's 12 quid a month. I mean, in this part of town, you barely get, you know, a Negroni for that.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to help me because I've got 5 children, so I've got a big house, right, and in Wales, right. And I'm paying currently 2,000. It was quoted Scottish Power last week. They quoted me £2,700. My bill is going to be for the next financial for me. Yeah, that's it. Now look, I live in a 5-bedroom house. You know, the heating's been turned off. All my kids are wearing woolly jumpers made in Wales. I've decided that that's the way we got to go, you know. But no, seriously, for a lot of people that can't afford it, Mike, it's devastating. And I'll feel the pinch, you know. I'm not a class as a low-income earner, but I will feel the pinch myself. I think we all will. And I think it's when it's the lowest paid people in our country that have to shoulder the burden of the financial state that we're in, that's been caused by this government. And yet he gets up today, Rishi Sunak, and he speaks as if he's doing us all a favour.
Yeah. Like, I've decided that I'm going to hand you back your own money, really. I mean, it's like some bloke robbing you and going, I'll tell you what, I'll leave you £5 to get home. You know, I'll take all the rest of your money, but here's £5 to get on the bus.
But look, the answer is simple. You've already covered it so much, Mike, today. Look, cut the taxes. You know, get rid of this green tax. It's 20%.
Tax, 20%.
Get rid of it. Just cut it straight away. It's done. Done deal.
And it's no small amount of money, because when you think about it, if you're paying £2,000 a year, and as a lot of people are, you knock 20% off that, suddenly it's £400 you're saving. And then make another 5% off, you know, you're doing pretty well. So, I mean, it seems to me that would be a far more intelligent way to deal with it, because this is madness. Because all that's going to happen is the energy prices are going to go up higher, the energy companies are all going to make even more money, and we're all getting stooped.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you think of what's been going on with Boris at the moment, you would have thought that he would have had a word in Rishi Sunak's ear and said, let's do something really good, you know, that really gets people back on board. You know, it's just common sense. Just say, look, let's do something. Let's get people back on board, you know. But no, nothing, no plan, apart from raising taxes.
And I see this getting a lot worse before it gets better, because the Bank of England's put up interest rates. That's going to hurt people who have got mortgages, so that's going to go up. People who are saving, you know, every single company that is now paying for their energy is going to see themselves having to put their own prices up, right? Because in the end, that's all they can really do. Lance Foreman's actually sent me a message which says, with energy costs doubling, keeping VAT and climate tax at the same rate means the government is actually benefiting from the price rise at the expense of consumers. Disgraceful. So they're making even more money that way.
Yeah, well, and Peter Hitchens, as you said, right, he was almost, prophetic, let's be honest. What he said has come to pass, because you could see where it was going. You can't have highest levels of borrowing since the 1930s and the debt that we've got since we've ever known, in my lifetime certainly. It has to be paid for. But the way they're going about it is going to, once again, it's going to be a burden on the middle and lowest paid people in society. Yeah. And they're the ones government should be taking care of. It's not the ones who are rich, who've got the money, the ability to pay. They're going to be okay. They're going to manage, they're going to find it. But some of the big companies, some of the small independent companies, Mike, which doesn't get covered. What about them? What about local businesses in communities across England and Wales and Scotland, where they're going to feel the squeeze, where they can't afford their energy bills? They're going to have to shut their doors. They've just gone through a pandemic where they've not been able to open. They're open now, of course, and now they're facing huge domestic and business, costs in their energy. It's not sustainable.
No, I mean, I've got all sorts of people. I've got all sorts of people getting in touch with me. This is from Robert, right? He says, marvellous, Mike, isn't it? I barely got my business through lockdown for the last 23 months. Had a bill for the gas and electricity for December only, combined £1,300. At this rate, I'll be out of business by the end of the year. And I mean, it's absolutely it's just unsustainable, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's interesting, Mike, that all you hear from the dispatch box is we've got the fastest growing economy in the G7. You know, we're doing this. That's great. But then we get calls like this. We hear people's stories, and it doesn't translate to what people are going through in everyday life. And I think that is what the government have got to get a grip. They've got to sort this out. They've got to, regulate where they need to change some of some of these big corporate companies putting big, huge taxes and spend on charging consumers at the pump, for example, gas and electric, and all those things. They need to do far more than what they're doing. What Rishi said today does not go far enough.
Listen, the great listeners and viewers to this show have got a lot more common sense than we even know, right? I've got this from Charlie. He sent me a picture of some doorstops. He said you can buy one of these for 60p. We can give them to the SNP. Every teacher in Scotland has one. Stick it under the door. Keeps it open. Job done. No need to spend £300,000. No need to just saved you 300 grand. Now, listen, before I let you go, and I've very much enjoyed this, you've retweeted a story which is also shocking. People will be absolutely horrified by this. 37,000 asylum seekers and Afghan refugees living in the UK hotels at a cost of £1.2 million per day.
Per day. That is the average cost that has been published just recently, that is costing the government to look after asylum seekers here in the UK. And when you consider all that we've just discussed, Mike, put it all together in context, the cost of living for people that lived and worked here all their lives, pay taxes all their lives, and they're facing this crisis of whether they should put the heating on or buy food, and yet we're spending £1.2 million a day looking after asylum seekers. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we need to put this into context. Have a bit of, what are we doing? What are we doing to our own people?
Yeah.
We need to look after our own people first, Mike.
I know.
Charity does begin at home.
Of course it does. It's absolute madness. £1.2 million a day. I mean, I've actually had from the migration committee at the House of Commons, the MP who's the chair of that, and I said to him, what happens to these people when they arrive in Dover, when they get helped onto the shore by the RNLI or whoever it is, Border Force, that are helping them into Britain? What do they do then? Oh, they get taken to some accommodation. I said, yeah, well, how long for? And he said, a couple of days, which was a barefaced lie. He knows that's not true, but nobody's willing to actually give you the truth of it. But everybody that I know that knows what's going on tells me that hotels up and down the country have been basically occupied for the best part of a year and a half, and they never are able to give you a room. If you turn up and say, can I have a room, please? They go, no, sorry. It's all block booked. It's block booked for years.
And I think that the challenge we've had with mainstream media certainly is that when you mention anything to do with asylum seekers, straight away they categorise you as being, a racist or, you hate these. And it's not the reality. Look, we've got an island that's it's so big, right? And I believe in controlled immigration. Yeah. We can't have, and we had this under Tony Blair. It was an absolute disaster for us. Yeah. It doesn't work. You cannot do it. And lots of these people are not leaving war zones. They're coming through European countries that are not in the middle of a war. Yeah. So
well, listen, I wouldn't advise him to go to some parts of Swansea, where I've been on a Saturday night before this. That's not very safe either.
To Swansea, no, definitely not. I can agree. I can concur with that one, Mike.
Now, listen, I'm going to finish up with another tweet from David. He says, I live in Wales. Can you please let this guy get in charge down here? He's brilliant. So there you go. You got one vote.
Got one vote.
Well, listen, Drakeford will do away with all elections soon. Kim Jong Drakeford, as he's now known. Yeah. I mean, he won't be allowed to vote for anybody else. He'll just stay in forever.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, Nick. He's trying to run things down. You're giving 16-year-olds the right to vote. We've got that. Foreign nationals can vote here in Wales now, so you don't even have to be a citizzen. You can vote. I mean, he's done it. Look,
it's a joke.
He's been there. He's going to stay there for a while longer unless we need something in Wales. I told you before, Mike, we need a revolution in Wales. That's what we need. We really do.
I think we're going to need one here soon as well. Richard, great to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Richard Taylor, political commentator, a man who speaks a great deal of common sense.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.